Welcome to the Dynasty Roundtable. Tonight, we're talking NFL preseason, what to do with some of these players that are tearing it up in the preseasons, maybe some players that aren't doing so well. And as I'm talking right now, I forgot to put one more player on the list, but we already have too many players on the list, Matt. So who knows what's going to happen? Who knows what we're going to get to? I'm just happy to be talking Dynasty with you on a Wednesday night. How you doing, brother?
I'm incredible. The only thing, football is beginning to take a hold of my brain. You know, I'm sitting here at work and I got this slow draft FFPC draft going on, and I look at the draft board like every 2 minutes. I'm looking for camp news. It's that point in the off season where I just need it to be here already, and it's getting oh so close. And now we're actually starting to learn some valuable information from the preseason. And so it's the perfect time to talk about players that are quickly rising up the rankings or are ready to explode in their rookie seasons, or players that we need to start fading. And so you're right, we do have plenty of names on the list, but before we get into the real meat and potatoes of the episode, I think we should quickly touch on what's going on with CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. Neither of them have seen the practice field. They're looking for new contracts. Seth, tell the people how they should view this situation as dynasty managers, because I think we agree that it's a pretty simple outlook.
Yeah, as the great prophet Aaron Rodgers once said, RELAX. And you're definitely not moving Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb. You're not taking a lower offer. It is more concerning for Jamar Chase, I think, based on how the Bengals do guaranteed money, because the Bengals have a very specific way that they do guaranteed money. And it makes it a lot more complicated. And the Bengals themselves have just been a weird franchise for a long time. Whereas Jerry Jones, typically at the end of the day, when it comes to paying a star player, he has a very good track record of making that happen. So I'm not concerned at all for CeeDee Lamb. I think, honestly, this is more of a redraft question, because if it I was torn on Jamar Chase versus Amon-Ra St. Brown anyway. And if you're asking me who I want to spend my first round pick on today, if given the choice between those two players on August 21st, the answer's simple. It's Amon-Ra St. Brown. And I'm definitely feeling better if I have him in Dynasty as well. But as far as what to do with CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, there isn't really much to do, because we know who these players are. They're superstars and they have an immense amount of dynasty value. So you're not trading them. You're just kind of holding tight and seeing what's going to happen. But I'm definitely more concerned for Chase. How do you see this, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, they're both going to play. I think the way I see it, they're both going to play this season. They're both going to play next season. The odds of either getting traded are slim to none, and the odds of either of them immediately falling outside of their top 5 assets because of their landing spot is also slim to none. These are alpha guys. I mean, Chase has had T. Higgins. He would have to be put in quite a situation for us to be worried about his target share. And the same goes for CeeDee Lamb. I mean, these are alpha target earners. I'm not sure if I'm ready to just start taking Amon-Ra St. Brown because of this. I know that was kind of close to where you were at anyway, based on your previous dynasty rankings, but I'm not there yet necessarily. I'm definitely not worried about either of these two players. And if for some reason you are able to pull off some sort of discount, I think these are the situations where that's always worth it. If Chase or there's very few teams that wouldn't benefit from having Chase or Lamb on their roster in Dynasty. So if you're playing in a home league, somebody who's not necessarily sure about what this situation is going to be, capitalize on it. I highly doubt that's going to be the case for a majority of people, but yeah, just don't read too much into it. Keep your priors. So don't let this kind of change anything. Le'Veon Bell was the last person to actually hold out, and that didn't work out too well for him. People took notice of that, and it's not a coincidence that it hasn't really happened since.
Yeah, so I think that's well said. I think we covered that. So let's get into some of the more juicier news in the
Mhm.
preseason. Some of these rookie quarterbacks look really good, like basically every single one of them. Caleb Williams, he has me super excited as a Bears fan. But let me just pose the question to you this way: which quarterback are you most excited for in Dynasty, or most excited if you have them on your roster? And then which quarterback do you think out of these 4, and we're talking Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, I guess Drake May's in there too. Like, so you could talk about Drake May if you wanted to, but which out of those 3, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, are you most excited to have? And maybe which one are you potentially looking to trade if the price is right?
Yeah, just like any ambiguous situation, I am most excited to have the cheapest one. So if we're talking just Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams, I'm most excited to have Jaden Daniels because he's cheaper with a lot of upside, rushing upside, passing upside, offense that is generally fantasy friendly. Adding Drake May into the equation, absolutely. I'm stoked to have the QB 18. Now, I understand that Bryce Young was right next to CJ Stroud, and those were passing ships in the opposite direction last season. But CJ Stroud was in a similar tier. Granted, he was either QB 17 or 18 in the offseason. And we saw the rise to where he was now. So, who's going to be most valuable? If I'm a rebuilding team and I have quarterback depth, Drake May was always the pick. If you were that mid-level team with QB security, Drake May was the pick because of the value increase that he was going to give you when he goes from QB 18 to QB 12. Because we know with these rookie quarterbacks, and we saw Drake May willing to do 2 things: push the ball downfield and take off and run, use the legs. We saw he had a rushing touchdown, and he had another rush, I believe, about 12 yards. So if he's going to be a 30 to 40 rushing yard, per game kind of guy when he steps onto the field with rushing touchdown upside, he's going to be a top 12 QB. This offense is improving. We're seeing Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, who might be a little bit of more of a slow ramp up, but they're building weapons in this offense. Projected to get a prospect like Luther Burden in next year's draft. So if they come away with, they try to trade for Brandon Ayuk. So they're clearly trying to get another receiver. They're doing already a much better job of putting together a receiving core than Bill Belichick ever really did in the modern Patriots era. So Drake May is the biggest value here mostly just because he's cheap. And like Caleb Williams, like Jaden Daniels, he has both rushing upside, more similarly to Caleb Williams, where mostly passing upside. But for ranking rushing upside, it's Daniels, May, Williams. Passing upside, Williams, May, Daniels. Potentially even flip Daniels and May there. Point is, you want all these guys. Jaden Daniels is a little bit tougher of an ask at QB 10. I think we both agree as the Bears fan, Williams is generational and one of those guys that you might as well just get in on the ground floor if you can. Like if you can look back like contracts, and if you could have acquired Patrick Mahomes for what he was worth when he first broke out in Dynasty, you'd be looking at it today saying it was probably the greatest decision you've ever made. So Dynasty or Caleb Williams is one of those few assets that you can truly buy the hype now because it probably is going to be the cheapest he'll ever get, and he'll be one of those unattainable assets. Jaden Daniels is a little bit different at 10. I think the pressure to sack ratio, some of the things we saw in college, the age, the lack of production early on, there are a lot of concerns, albeit I think ones that he's going to overcome. QB 10's a high starting price, which is why I'm much more confident in May's price at QB 18, much less risk there. And weirdly enough, somebody who I kind of want to sell is Bo Nix. So Bo Nix is at QB 20, and we look at the quarterbacks around him. You got JJ McCarthy, Goff, Drake May, Dak Prescott, Tua, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence. This is a tough hill to start climbing. right? So you say QB 20, a lot of room for growth until you start looking at who those quarterbacks are that he has to surpass. And so Bo Nix breaking into the top 15 would be pretty shocking to me. Maybe not in terms of what his value is on paper, but his worth on your dynasty teams. So he is the guy who I'm carefully watching the market, because Bo Nix seems like a guy where preseason, it's preseason. If he's going to get hyped from preseason and I get to sell on a gain for a guy that's probably never going to be a quarterback one in his career, I'll get out in front of that preseason any chance I get. Because if he goes out the first 3 weeks and has like barely 200 passing yards, like a Bryce Young type start, you're not going to be able to sell him for as high as you are right now.
Yeah, I was going back and forth with a guy. There's a lot of hype surrounding Bo Nix, and you got there in the end. You kind of confused me with Drake May, because I think there's a good chance Drake May isn't the week one. I think there's two starting jobs that haven't been determined: the Steelers and the Patriots. Right?
May starts by week 5.
May starts by week 5. Okay. Because if you're going to make me sell one, it would have been Drake May, just because I don't know if he starts right away. I could see them resting. I mean, what's the point of playing a quarterback on a terrible team with a suspect offensive line? But Bo Nix is one that I'm putting him on the trade block to see if I can get that big offer right now, because God, Bo Nix, and we talked about it when rookie drafts were going on. Bo Nix was falling to the second round. Michael Penix was falling to the second round of rookie drafts, of super flex rookie drafts, which is why when you're building your dynasty team and there's a quarterback that was taken in round 1 sitting there staring you in the face, we're not GMs. We don't care that the Falcons make terrible decisions. You're taking the quarterback there every time. If there's a lesson to be learned in all this, it's you don't know what's going to happen. You're not a like, as much football as we watch, we don't know what the Falcons are going to do. They could do something dumb and take Michael Penix with pick 8, right? Somehow Penix got pushed down. Same thing with Bo Nix. Like, a lot of people, including myself, thought, I don't know about Bo Nix. His yards per attempt in college is really low. He seems like he's a product of the system in Oregon. He's looking really good in the preseason. I'm still skeptical of that because I want to see him play an NFL game. But, like, who knows? Like, I'm cautiously a sell on Bo Nix, and I'm probably I'm putting both of those players on the trade block if I'm a win now team to see what I can get for them, if and only if I have depth at quarterback. That's kind of where I'm at. And Daniels and Williams, you have to pry those quarterbacks away from me over my dead body is basically how I view them, because they're so valuable. Like, Cody was talking about Jaden Daniels on the hurdle today because he was live at Washington Commanders training camp. And he was like, Jaden Daniels is a dude, basically. Like,
yeah, man,
Jaden Daniels is a lot better than people think he was coming out of college. Like he's really good. So
I love the way the Commanders have been working with him throughout the offseason, because he hasn't been pressured yet in the preseason. He has the shortest time to throw of any quarterback in the preseason. They're working in all this quick, easy stuff, getting him, snap, read, play, and just getting him comfortable in that offense, keeping him upright in these game scenarios. And they're really building the building blocks of the offense, which we already see through the preseason, are coming together very quickly. And so they're already shaping up that foundation of the offense that's going to allow Jaden to succeed early on, build on that success, and really grow throughout the season. So I've loved what I've seen out of Jaden Daniels. I had some questions going into the season. Was a buy just because he's an athletic, a dual threat quarterback who's going to start. And now you see why you take those bets, because, looks like his age in college didn't really matter that much. Looks like his weird, funky elbow doesn't prohibit him from throwing a dot on a deep ball. And then Drake May, real quick to close out the conversation. See, he's an insulated asset. And if you are a win now team that happened to get Drake May, that's how you win now and win longer, because there's not a lot of risk for you in holding, because Drake May is starting at some point. And then, because if you're selling now as a win now team on a guy like Drake May, to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're truly buying something that ends up being a difference maker. It's hard to tell what that is in a theoretical conversation. But if you're trading Drake May as a win now team, that piece you trade for better win you the season. It better be a Raheem Mostert type of pickup preseason. You keep guys like May because it doesn't matter if they're not going to start right away. They're going to start eventually. And I don't know about you, but I've really liked what I've seen from Drake May thus far. His talent coming in. He is as good of a thrower over the football, I think, as Williams and Daniels. Maybe not in the same tier, but he's number 3, like in a close 3.
Yeah, and we have the fantasy plumber in the chat, and also Sam Babbage in the chat.
It's not really
as
a tough look though.
I mean, I can understand. I understand why they're doing it. I understand why they're doing it from a good quarterback. Like, he's a good bridge quarterback.
We don't even know if he's going to start, like, from Gerard Mayo. If Drake May has a chance to earn the starting job in this final preseason game. It went from Brissett being like minus 600 to be the week 1 starter to Gerard Mayo is now saying, like, next Monday we're going to know. Like, after this final preseason game, we're going to know. So we don't even know that he's going to sit. And he is a good bridge quarterback, which is why he may start week 1. But I don't think not starting week 1 is an indictment necessarily on a player like May. Like, that's, I think, an overreaction. Like, oh, he's not starting over Brissett. Like,
yeah. I think a good comparison for these rookie quarterbacks, like, it's not a great situation. I think we can both agree on that for Drake May, because I think what we could be looking at is a Bryce Young type of situation. And I don't even know if it's that bad for him, to be honest with you, because
it could be.
Bryce Young had nobody. Drake May is currently ranked 55th according to Keep Trade Cut, and Bryce Young, and you say insulated value, like, Bryce Young took a little bit of a hit. Like, he's down to 83. He's still got value, he's still going to carry his value, but I think if you're a Drake May owner, like, I think you might be rooting for him to sit. Like, because hopefully your quarterback situation's secure, and hopefully you're focusing on the right details and just adding quarterbacks, especially in Superflex. But, like, from a value standpoint, if he gets out there and he doesn't have much to work with. I mean, we're assuming like Jalen Polk and Javon Baker are going to be really good. If they're good, then I guess we have nothing to worry about. But you see what I'm trying to say? Like,
I think the difference is there's going to be a rushing floor that's going to help insulate his value.
Okay.
Like, if Bryce Young had the scramble ability of like Patrick Mahomes, because like it kind of goes understated, but Mahomes has a bit of a rushing floor. It's not very consistent, but he has 30-40 yard rushing weeks fairly often, especially later on in the season. But if he had that type of ability to get you 3 to 4 points on the ground any given week, that, as we know, completely changes a fantasy outlook. And we're talking about Young falling from QB 18 to QB 21, right? And so that's I think a huge difference, and not even a huge devaluation from Bryce Young. Like, I don't think the price of Bryce Young got that much cheaper because we knew he had nobody. We knew there was a high possibility he was going to stink. And the same thing might happen to Drake May. That offensive line in New England is going to be terrible. Already lost 2 starters to the year for the year. So it's going to be bad again. But it's because you have somebody who's both willing and able to push the ball downfield and run the ball. I think that's going to be the difference, where the Patriots offense they're generally more competent. So we talked about Drake May at length. So we'll let it be.
Yeah.
But I still to this day think Drake May is a buy and somebody who is going to show signs of success early on.
Okay. And I'm a little offended that you said that you ranked May ahead of Caleb Williams in rushing, because Williams back-to-back years in college with double-digit rushing touchdowns. I think the rushing touchdowns might be a little bit, we might see a lot of rushing touchdowns for Caleb Williams in year one as he adjusts to the NFL, but we shall see.
Drake May ran for 700 yards at the age of 20, and then 500 yards the next year.
Okay. They're both mobile, but Caleb Williams definitely a sneaky tactical scrambler.
100%. That wasn't meant to be a shot at Caleb Williams in any way. I just, I think the ranking is obviously Jaden Daniels number 1, Drake May number 2, and then Caleb Williams with the close 3. He has more talent to where he's not going to have to run as much.
True, and there's more talent around him. There's a lot more talent.
Talent around him. If Caleb Williams is scrambling 5-6 times a game, you're probably not really happy with what they're putting out on the field.
Yeah. All right, let's shift to the rookie wide receivers, because it wasn't just the quarterbacks. The wide receivers are tearing it up as well. Xavier Worthy catches the touchdown. Brian Thomas Jr. looks great. Mm-hmm. Cody said Keon Coleman looked good in training camp. So which of these rookie wide receivers are you most excited for, and which one are you most apprehensive about? And you can go anywhere. Like, you could talk about Adonai Mitchell, anybody on the list, not on the list. I don't really care.
Yeah, Adonai Mitchell is definitely one I'm keeping an eye on. In best ball, in redraft right now, given the risk reward, feels like a very safe click. Dynasty, his value definitely fell post-draft and throughout training camp. Now it's starting to come back on the rise. To be honest, I missed the window on Adonai Mitchell. I'd be shocked if that value dip is still there, because Josh Downs is down with an injury. We're seeing him flash in training camp. So those who drafted Adonai Mitchell are probably feeling really good. They should be holding. The problem is, if this injury does not hinder Josh Downs too much and he comes back healthy week 2, week 3, then it immediately goes back to being a sticky situation. And I just don't know what Adonai Mitchell's weekly floor or ceiling is going to be. We know they really like Josh Downs. What we still don't know, and what we won't know, is, do they like Adonai Mitchell more than they like Josh Downs? And I think there's room for both of them within the offense, but there's not room for both of them to be valuable fantasy assets in the short term. So Adonai Mitchell, if I drafted him, I held him. If I didn't draft him, I'm still keeping where I'm at for right now. It's a bet I'm willing to miss on. Like, if he becomes the Devonta Smith to AJ Brown's Michael Pittman, or Michael Pittman's AJ Brown, but if that kind of 1A, 1B situation arises, then I think that's a bet I'm willing to not take, or something I'm willing to miss on, because I just don't think the odds of him breaking through that significantly in that offense are very high. Keon Coleman, on the other hand, can break through this offense significantly, given his current situation, given that he's on a very pass-happy team, looking very good in training camp. His value also was on the fall as Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid were getting hyped up. So Keon Coleman's someone I'm willing to potentially buy the dip on if there is one. I don't truly know if preseason rookie buys are a thing. Most dynasty managers I know are way too stubborn to give up on a rookie they just drafted so easily, but Keon Coleman is a target of mine right now. You just listen to the beat reporters. You listen to guys like Cody that are tapped in. They know ball. They are really impressed with Keon Coleman. They're impressed with Brian Thomas Jr., all of these guys. From a value standpoint, Keon Coleman is the one who I am most interested in, once again, because he is the cheapest. Now, it's kind of a lame cop-out for me to do it every time, but Brian Thomas Jr. is valued at wide receiver 24 right now, and that is tough for me. With Calvin Ridley in the offense last season, Evan Ingram drew 24% of the targets, led all tight ends in targets. Christian Kirk drew over 20% of the targets. ETN drew over 12% of the targets. Now we're adding Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis into that equation. So that is a tough evaluation in the short term to be valued at wide receiver 24. I just don't know if he's going to do that right now. I would rather have Debo, Flowers, Rashee Rice, guys who are valued per keep trade cut in a similar spot. Xavier Worthy, I'm willing to pay a premium on if I need to, because the way this guy beats defenses it's incredible. I mean, you shift your body weight in the wrong direction and you're toast. He's that quick. He's that fluid with his routes. A lot of my bullishness does come from Marquise Brown's injury. I think missing these preseason reps, dislocating your collarbone, that affects range of motion quite severely. And so his outlook changes significantly, as does Worthy's. He's going to get a lot more work in the early run, which is why I was so hesitant. So now that he's going to get that early season opportunity with that projected growth throughout the year, plus potential special teams opportunities, Xavier Worthy is just too good to pass up on. We were saying it all off season. His price shot up in an ambiguous situation in Kansas City, but as long as that guy's tied to Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to want him on my fantasy teams. So love Worthy, love Coleman. I'm kind of fading Brian Thomas because of his price right now. But if I'm someone who bought, if I'm someone who drafted, I'm going to be looking to sell with this preseason hype. Give me a guy like Debo, who already has a safe floor and could have a big ceiling if Ayuk is somehow traded.
Yeah, I think you said it right. I think it's going to be near impossible to trade for one of these rookies right now because like the hype is just out of control. I think what we need to be thinking about in terms of making trades right now is if you're low on Brian Thomas Jr., which it sounds like you are, maybe you ought to, if you're a win now team, maybe you ought to be looking at Christian Kirk because the hype or what's the narrative, right? Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis. Those are two wide receivers and two wide receiver sets, and Christian Kirk's going to be stuck in the slot. Like, I have a hard time believing that, to be honest with you, especially given the nature of this Jacksonville offense. Now, the offensive line is a huge question mark in Jacksonville as well. So that needs to get cleaned up, and it doesn't necessarily look like it's going to. It's the one reservation I have about the Jaguars, because the Jaguars, they pass the ball a lot. They were number 6 in team pass plays per game, and they run at a high pace. They're number 2 in the NFL in pace of play. That means a lot of passes, a lot of targets for the wide receivers. So that's why I like Evan Ingram so much. That's why I like Christian Kirk so much. But when you throw the Brian Thomas Jr. wrench into the situation, I would assume that the Jaguars realize that, hey, our offensive line stinks, means we're going to have to get the ball out of Trevor Lawrence's hand very fast. So that, to me, signals, Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram are still going to get plenty of opportunities in this offense. Gabe Davis is going to be a field stretcher because Gabe Davis has always been a field stretcher that spikes 2 or 3 times a year-ish. And Brian Thomas Jr. is the big wild card. Like, Brian Thomas Jr. looks like they're going to use him as an outside receiver. So I could really see him. I'm very skeptical as well. Like, I like the talent. I want him on my dynasty team. I'm not selling him right now, but I don't know if I'm necessarily buying right now because, like we said, it's impossible to buy rookies. But when we're thinking about rookies, I think we need to think about what veterans are tied to these rookies that maybe we can trade for. And I honestly think when we look at this, I honestly think like a sneaky dynasty buys right now. Marquise Hollywood Brown, he's injured. He's going to miss the first part of the season, like maybe a couple weeks, but he's going to be tied to that Chiefs offense. Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, take your pick. Like whoever you like. I'm a Khalil Shakir guy, but hey, if you're a Curtis Samuel guy, Lord bless you. Like go ahead and get Curtis Samuel because he's really cheap. So like I want all these rookies on my team, don't get me wrong, and I'm excited to see what they can do in the NFL. But I think that's more of the way that we can think about this as dynasty managers right now, because there's no way that we're getting these rookies. So which veterans can we kind of sneakily acquire that can help our chances of winning a championship in 2024? I think that's the focus. And I think those are some names that we can think about. And we talked about one last week, Josh Palmer. Everybody's talking about Ladd McConkey.
There you go.
Who we like. Josh Palmer's the ultimate sneaky buy in Dynasty. So
the key word there, a key phrase is that will help win us championships. And I don't think Marquise Brown is that guy this year. You're telling me at full strength, he's going to have to compete with Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, and Travis Kelce, among others, for targets in a managed league. I don't know. He was impossible to start, tethered with Kyler Murray and what was a fairly productive offense under him when he returned. You couldn't start Marquise Brown. And now we're going to put him into a stiffer target situation, but we're going to give him a boost because he's tethered to Mahomes. Even though it's his first year, they've never played together. They're missing out on key reps right now that Worthy and Rice and Kelce are getting, and Kelce's had for years. So I agree with your sentiment. My pushback is that I am not looking to buy Marquise Brown. That ship has sailed. He wasn't usable when he was in a better situation. I find it very hard to believe that he's going to be a championship winning asset in a worse situation.
Well, I think he's going to be a guy you can put in your flex and feel somewhat comfortable on some of these bye weeks. Because when you're telling me like he's ranked 137th according to Keep Trade Cut, like we're talking a mid second round 2025 pick. Like, and it probably won't even cost that much for him. Maybe a late second gets it done. Justin Fields maybe gets that done. You know, there's multiple ways to skin a cat here. And if there's an injury that happens, like in the offense, like just having pieces of that Chiefs offense, that's why he's a buy for me. But I understand. I think we agree on most of what we're talking about here.
Agree on the process, disagree on that one player is
exactly
where we're at.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah, we disagree on the player, agree on the process. And the chat is alive, more so the fantasy plumber. So he says Davis and BTJ split 25. Are you talking snap share or not snap share? Probably target share. Is
probably the remaining. I think he's saying like they're going to split the remaining part of the target share.
Yeah, but that's probably a good call because I think the Christian Kirk hate is going. I think that narrative's cockamamie. To be honest with you, I think Christian Kirk's going to be just fine. Let's see. Could BTJ get you Amari Cooper? Oh, absolutely, it could. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I said I replied in the comments 100%, and I'll take it. I'll take it.
Okay, so you're on Amari Cooper there.
You're on Amari Cooper? Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you're going to get Amari Cooper plus. If someone sent me Brian Thomas Jr. for Amari Cooper straight up, I'm rejecting because even though I value Amari Cooper more early on, it doesn't mean you just accept an offer for 70% of value. Like you get that third round pick in return or whatever it is. I'm not sure what would I have to think about it a little more, but something in return. You're getting a little something in return. Maybe you get a slight running back upgrade, but these are why you make trades because Amari Cooper is valued higher in the short term and you get that extra benefit. And that's why trades are important because the person trading for Brian Thomas Jr. isn't going to care about the other piece that they're giving away because they're trying to get a longer term wide receiver one. But yes,
gotcha. My point would be I think you could probably get a little bit more than Amari Cooper. I think you could get a little sprinkle on top of that. Maybe you could
Yeah,
get
it's exactly.
get him to throw in Ray Davis or something, which is a good transition to our next topic, the Buffalo backfield. So you have James Cook on here. I don't think I put James Cook on the list. I think that was you,
Nope.
even though I'm a pretty big.
You
We
put
are
James
pro.
you put
Did I
James
put
Cook on the
James Cook?
list.
Oh, all right.
You had
So
gotten so far in the list. I just added Tim Patrick. Spoiler alert. That's all I put on.
okay. Well, we have to. Well, that's what we have to finish strong with Tim Patrick. But James Cook, are we buying this narrative that he is not the bell cow, but the 2024 version of what a bell cow could be? And then Cody today on the hurdle. Sorry, I'm referencing Cody a lot in the show, but
He's
I
a
think
ball
he
knower. He
deserves it.
should.
He put up a picture of James Cook, and he basically made the point: does this look like a guy who gets 250 carries? And I say, yes. I think James Cook is going to get about 250 carries, but most importantly, there's 312 vacated targets in that offense. And I don't think Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, and Keon Coleman are going to equal 312 targets. I just don't. So I think some of those targets are going to go James Cook's way. And what we need to pay attention to, I think, is dynasty gamers. And this is a thought that we need to explore. Looking at what's happening with CeeDee Lamb, with Jamar Chase, NFL teams aren't stupid. Like, we went through this with Jimmy Graham. Just because there's a TE next to the name doesn't mean that they're not a playmaker, and it doesn't mean that you can't put them out wide at wide receiver or in the slot. So just because James Cook has an RB next to his name doesn't necessarily mean that the Buffalo Bills are going to utilize him as a running back 100% of the time. He's going to be involved in the passing game. He almost has to be involved in the passing game in order for this offense to make sense, unless you're a huge believer in Curtis Samuel or Khalil Shakir, which I like Shakir, but I'm not over the moon. I like him, but I'm not in love with him. So I think as the NFL progresses and as teams get smarter, this is something we need to pay attention to, because we've already seen it happen with Jimmy Graham. We're going to see it happen with Kyle Pitts. I guarantee you, if Kyle Pitts has a big year this year, he's going to go, why the hell did I become a tight end? I'm basically a wide receiver. That's basically what Travis Kelce is. Like, the only difference is you don't have to pay him $30 million a year. And so how does this make any difference for fantasy football? It means likely that the running backs, we're gonna have to move them up, because they've already taken a huge hit in underdog drafts this year. So, and in dynasty, I think running backs have taken a pretty big hit too, especially when hero RB and zero RB strategies just continue to get more and more popular, and that goes to, that trend that lends itself to dynasty as well. So what are we thinking? That's my big way of saying I think James Cook is going to be used more in the passing game this year. But what say you, Matt Babich? I'm a big James Cook stan. What about you?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to look at James Cook. So you said, is he a guy who does he look like a guy who's going to get 250 carries? Well, he had 240 last year. And from what I know, they're 2-back and they're 3-back. Latavius Murray and Damian Harris are no longer factors in this equation. Enter Ray Davis. So it seems like they have their backup. Fantasy Plumber in the chat says, I'm cheering for Ray Davis, and I think he has the talent to steal some between the tackle work. That is what I think a lot of dynasty managers or fantasy football players in general are missing. He's not stealing anything. It's his. Latavius Murray, 79 carries. Those are Ray Davis's. Like, he's going to get a good chunk of the offense. And James Cook, even with his 237 attempts, that was not a 50% share of the rushes. His dominance, his opportunity share in the Bills' backfield was extended by his involvement in the passing game, about a 10% target share, which when I made the bull case for James Cook last season was what my argument hinged on, him hitting a 10% target share. And honestly, I thought it would be a little closer to 12. I think that's his floor given the new situation. Obviously, the offense will probably regress slightly in terms of pass attempts, but there is room for both to have a role in this offense where Cook has 12 to 14% of the targets, 225 plus carries. And if he's able to get the red zone work to score some touchdowns, he'll be, putting up those RB12 type numbers where his evaluation is. My biggest concern is that he's valued at RB12. He was RB19 last year in fantasy points per game, 6 touchdowns, which is not a terribly low amount. It's obviously not a great season in terms of touchdowns, but it's got to be making a lot more plays to become an RB1. And at value, at RB12, there are guys that we talk about all the time, like Rachaad White, who is RB14, Josh Jacobs, who I think is underrated. There are similar assets around James Cook. I even like the upside of Isaiah Pacheco more than James Cook this year. I've come around to your Pacheco argument as of late. So James Cook is just a tough evaluation to me, where I'm looking to see what I can get for James Cook if I have him, not necessarily because of opportunity concerns. I just think his value may have jumped the shark to where I just don't know if he's in the right situation or if he's the right guy to be a fantasy RB1. Mike is muted.
Oh, damn. Okay, I think that's fair, but there's a lot of good that happened for James Cook last year.
100%.
Like number 2 amongst running backs in yards per route run, number 12 in yards per carry, 10% target share. I almost think that has to go up this year because that was number 25 amongst running backs.
Yeah,
and he finished as he's a pass catching running back who finished number 19 amongst number 19 in targets amongst running backs. And he finishes the RB12, RB19 in fantasy points per game. So like when I'm thinking about James Cook and I think things through, I know contrary to some people, they're like, oh, Seth's just a, fly by the seat of his pants, navy colored glasses kind of guy who just go Bears go. But when thinking about players, you have to think about the con argument and thinking about how could this go wrong. And when you're thinking about James Cook, the only real explanation that you can come up with is like, does he get hurt, or is Ray Davis just really good, and I just cannot get there, because I think this Bills offense is still going to be really good, and I think James Cook is really good because he played well last year. The metrics tell us that he's good. The tape looks good. And at some level, Matt, all we can do is make checks in the pro column. Like, okay, this looks good. This looks good. This looks good. Could it all go tits up? Yeah, like I could be wrong, but man, James Cook, redraft, dynasty, whatever form, like I am very bullish on James Cook this year.
Yeah, I get being bullish on him this year, but I think there's a difference between being bullish on somebody and being willing to buy somebody at the top of their evaluation. And so I got you. So I like James Cook as well. I just think his price right now is too stiff. Obviously, if you're getting him below what like Keep Trade Cutter, the consensus says the market is, that's always a different conversation to have. But if you're paying let's see if I can see what the picks are here. A mid first, if before this season in a super flex league, if I could have traded my James Cook for a mid first, I absolutely would have done that. Unless I was truly, truly, truly desperate at running back. I just think there is a natural process in Dynasty where I know we always talk about how buy low, sell high is kind of a mundane trope, but when you think about acquisition and return on investment, when James Cooks start happening and RB12s in the rankings start happening, I just start asking myself, where is this gonna go from here? Like, is James Cook gonna be a top 5 back? Is James Cook gonna be somebody who is such a big difference maker that me having a guy like Rashad White or a Josh Jacobs is somebody, is that going to sink my team? Is having a Joe Mixon plus draft capital or Joe Mixon plus Josh Palmer going to kill my team because I let go of James Cook? These are the questions I have to ask myself. And if you're truly that bullish on James Cook to where you're sitting there with the team saying, I need a running back, I'm going to go out and get James Cook, then more power to you, because I do believe that there are enough pro arguments there to justify spending the cost. I just think for me, especially with the hype that's behind him, if I'm dealing with a James Cook believer, I'm just going to guess that 9 times out of 10, I walk away from that trade conversation because I'm not willing to give up what that other person wants.
Yeah. And I think too, I mean, it all depends on the offer. Like, as much as I love James Cook,
yeah,
like I'm looking at keep trade cut right now, and the player right underneath him is Rashee Rice. And I can tell you, if I'm in a dynasty startup and those two players are sitting there on the board for me, suspension be damned, I'm taking Rashee Rice.
You're taking Rashee Rice. Absolutely, you are.
Like and keep trade cut, it's a good tool. And Xavier Worthy too is ranked below James Cook, who I would probably take over James Cook. But that's just because I really don't like running backs and that's just a roster construction situation is what it becomes. But like if I have James Cook on my team, I'd be hard pressed to get rid of him because I think he's probably going to be in the conversation for a top 12, top 10, has the upside to be a top 5 running back in fantasy football if he gets more touchdown luck, because Josh Allen rushed for 15 touchdowns last year. I don't know if that's going to happen again. So anyway, I think we this is a good conversation. I think we both are agreeing, but yeah, according to Keep Trade Cut, James Cook's like very hyped up. He's right underneath Brian Thomas Jr. He is 3 spots below Kyle Pitts. He's very close to a 2025 mid first round pick, like Matt said. So again, Bills backfield super hyped up. Let us know what you think in the chat. Do we need to talk about the Pittsburgh backfield? What are your thoughts on the Pittsburgh backfield? Because Jaylen Warren now has a hamstring injury, and Najee Harris, according to Cody, Najee Harris is looking like a man in training camp. So do we make much out of this? Is Najee Harris moved up? What are your thoughts? Oh, you're muted now. You're muted. There we go. We traded mutes.
I put in my head.
I muted, so you had to mute. You had to make me look good. You had to make me. You had to equal yourself out. You were like the Predator in that movie. You had to take off your armor, so it was a fair fight. So you had to mute yourself because I muted myself, and now we're equaled out with our mutes. So Pittsburgh backfield. What do you think? Should we make much of it? Or anything?
Attitude the same as it was, long term this season. I don't think the Warren hamstring is. I'm not a doctor or anything, but I haven't seen any widespread panic on that. So I'm slow to believe that would be something that would impact his entire season. So Harris obviously has a little bit of an edge earlier on. But from a dynasty perspective, I still see the two of them cannibalizing each other, and I'm still going to want Jaylen Warren, the cheaper back, the one who is probably going to be a Steeler next year while Najee Harris isn't, and the one who I still believe is the better overall running back in terms of running and pass catching. But still buying Jaylen Warren, not buying Najee Harris, selling Najee Harris if I can. But yeah, my thoughts there haven't changed.
Yeah, Najee Harris, man, his value's taking a real hit. He's 123rd overall, according to Keep Trade Cut, whereas Jalen Warren is 115th. If somehow, some way, you can get Jalen Warren for Najee Harris straight up, if you can make that happen, if somebody's reading the training camp reports, going, "Oh my God, look at how big Najee Harris's calves are," or something, that's a trade you need to make 100 times out of 100, because as I've said multiple times on this channel, when it comes to my running backs, I chase the targets, and who's going to get the targets in this backfield? Historically, going back to last year, it's going to be Jalen Warren. And if you look at basically any efficiency metric you want to look at, and the tape, I'm including the tape for you tape grinders out there. So both factors, Jalen Warren wins the debate. The only argument that the Najee Harris believers have is, oh my God, Mike Tomlin is gonna, and with Arthur Smith and their powers combined, he's gonna bring back real football to America. Make football great again with 3-yard runs up the middle. Just like you can start to hear the music, right? Dun, 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 and Najee Harris tumbling over for 4 yards. But in the 2024 new age football that we all love, with passes, forward passes, Jalen Warren's your guy. And it's not really even that close to me. What do you want me to say?
So how about Tim Patrick, huh? Getting a good look with the starters. 5 targets, 5 receptions, 44 yards, and a touchdown. Camp Buzz seems to indicate he's going to be a starter. He's developing a connection with Bo Nix. Seems to be a very good candidate to be an early season flex play. Absolutely free. One of my favorite buys right now, waiver wire pickup, probably even in most leagues. Is it going to be Tim Patrick's season in the early going, or is this more preseason nonsense? Am I crazy?
Let's just say this. I'm going to be doing a Dynasty stashes video. Players that you need to be adding to your rosters that are rostered in less than 50% of sleeper leagues. Tim Patrick's on my list right now. As of right now, Tim Patrick's on the list. You know, Jordan Whittington's on the list.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are some of the guys.
Yeah.
So, and it obviously, if you play in deep dynasty leagues, these guys are probably long gone. But we're talking 50% or less of sleeper leagues. But yeah, I think Tim Patrick, we liked him, but he's just got the worst injury luck in the world. And so that's definitely a feel good story. I really hope it works out for Tim Patrick. And I really, I hope, Bo Nix can throw him the football and he can be a big part of that offense, because it's an offense that needs playmakers. I mean, really, they have Cortland Sutton. They're hoping Marvin Mims can be something. But they could really use Tim Patrick on the outside, because that's what he profiled as, a couple of years ago. And he looked really good in training camp. If you remember, he was, like a middle, if I remember right, a couple of years ago, he's like a mid-round, like 5th, 6th, 7th round, somewhere in there, pick and redraft before he tore his ACL. Yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping for the best. And yeah, when you are looking for dynasty stashes, and just full disclosure, Matt and I are in the process of figuring out the magic formula to figure out who to stash in dynasty. Like, we're crunching numbers, we're looking at tape, we're doing all this stuff, and we're trying to figure out like a metric or whatever it is to figure out like which players you need to have on the back end of your rosters, and how quickly you need to, get rid of those roster cloggers. Like, that's a whole aspect of dynasty. Like, if you're good at, you can find hidden gems. Like Darren Waller back in the day was a guy. Brock Purdy, like these guys, like, you can definitely find diamonds in the rough. Hell, Puka Nacua, right? So these are players that, it's very important to key in on. And I think Tim Patrick has as good a chance as anybody who's flying under the radar right now, and he's on the short list right now for the stash article video that I've got working.
There we go.
Yeah.
12
I think that's
players.
the show. I think that's the show. Did we do it?
We did it. 12 players, 55 minutes. Not bad for our typical pace.
I think Fantasy Plumber summed this up pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it took me like 12 minutes to say that.
Once again, we have one of our famous moments where we disagree for about 10 minutes until we come full circle and realize, like, oh no, we have the exact same opinion.
Wait a minute. We just were coming at it from we have the same process. We just disagree on player takes. So player takes, process, player takes, you know, there are going to be some disagreements there if you're doing real football analysis, you know, and you're two individuals. So
absolutely.
No problems. No worries. So tell me what you got going on. What plugs do you have? I mean, go follow you on Twitter at Babbage_Matt10, but what else?
Yeah, took that one right away from me, just anticipating me not saying it as I usually do.
Yeah.
But coming up in a few weeks, obviously we have week 1. So over on playerprofiler.com, you will be able to catch my start sit article. I'm also going to be kind of condensing the article into just a short Twitter thread with basically one start, one stat, one sit, one stat. So I'm going to condense that on Twitter as well. Free to read on playerprofiler.com. Other than that, you know, just stay tuned for all the awesome stuff that Seth and I are cooking up with the Dynasty Roundtable. We plan on, 2025 being our biggest year ever. So we're planning on closing out 2024 in a big way leading up to that. So just stay tuned.
Yeah, we are in the early days of this, and I've been more energized. I've been in the fantasy football space now as a content creator for about 3 years, and been playing fantasy football since I was in high school. And I'm probably the most energized that I've been in a long, long time, and that's nothing to do with anything. It just is what it is because I'm excited that we're doing this on our own channel, doing our own thing. And I'm excited to see how far we can take it. But that all depends on you guys as well. Like, we need your support. We need you to click the like button, subscribe to the channel if you liked it, if you want more of it. We're going to have a lot more content on this channel. And Matt and I have big ideas for how we want to do it, but we also want your input as well. So let us know what you want to see in the comments. And there's a chance that we might make a video if enough people are asking for it. So we definitely want to interact with our audience. You guys are the reason why we can do this. So thank you. And if you liked it, like it. If you want more of it, click the subscribe button. And then there's that bell to be notified of more content. And honestly, right now, that's the best way you can support us. And go to playerprofiler.com, where Matt is going to be a weekly writer. I'm going to be a weekly writer writing the Dynasty article for Player Profiler this year, as well as being the lead editor, editing every single article that you see on the website. And go to the article page, go to the fantasy homepage, Player Profiler. It's absolutely free. So until next time, I'm going to lead with the most controversial one because I am just going to ride this wagon right into the flames if that's where it's going. Chase Brown stinks. Nobody cares about Aaron Rodgers. Wiseman for Heisman. We'll see you later, everybody. Bye-bye.